Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to the wisdom Arya Manjushri, homage to all the benevolent lineage masters, the Dharma infinitely profound and subtle, rarely encountered even in the millennials. Now that we are able to hear, study, and follow it, may we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings. Let us generate the supreme bodhicitta. Today, we will continue with our study of homage and offerings to the 16 elders. Each elder has a respective stanza of praise. We have now reached the 14th elder. The verse states, "We pay homage to the noble elder Nagasena, who dwells on the slopes of Mount Meru, surrounded by 1,200 arhats and holds a vast and monk staff. Grant your blessings, so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread." Previously, we talked about Chulapentaka. Actually, I forgot to explain the reason for Chulapentaka's dullness yesterday. In one of his former lives, Chulapentaka was a Tripitaka master who was very stingy when it came to sharing Dharma teaching with others. He wouldn't even teach others a single verse of Dharma. So whether you are an expert in Dharma teaching or worldly knowledge, please do not be stingy. You should share it freely to anyone who requests it. Some people are stingy with their wealth, while some are not willing to share the Dharma. If you belong to the latter, your intelligence might not last in your next life. So we should be willing to share with others as much as we can. A selfish attitude is fairly common among worldly people. For example, some people might be experts in a specialized field of knowledge but unwilling to teach others because they're afraid others might eventually outshine them. We should be aware of this attitude. First line states, "We pay homage to the noble Nagasena," or Luide in Tibetan. The name means army of Nagas were host of dragons. Next line states, "Nagasena dwells on the slopes of Mount Meru," or Mount Vipulapashva. According to some sources, Nagasena dwells in Mount Pantava, a major mountain in Rajgriha. Next line states that he is surrounded by 1,200 arhats. He holds a monk's staff in one hand and a golden vase in the other. There are bells on the staff which, as they ring, awaken beings from ignorance. The golden vase contains nectar that can wash away the pain and afflictions in beings' mind stream. We pray to the elder Nagasena for his blessings, so that all great teachers may live long and always turn the Dharma well, and the teachings of the Mahayana and Theravada vehicles and of the Sutrayana and Vajrayana may remain long in this world for the benefit of all sentient beings. As to his life story, Nagasena was born into a royal family of a North Indian kingdom. As prince of his kingdom, he was destined to become the king. But having witnessed the immense suffering caused by war, hard labor, and so forth, he was repelled by worldly concerns. He realized that if he ascended the throne, his entire life would be occupied by these meaningless activities. Therefore, he renounced his claim to the throne, went to see Buddha Shakyamuni and requested to become a monk. According to some historical sources, Buddha Shakyamuni was 55 years old when he accepted Nagasena and granted him ordination. After becoming a monk, Nagasena studied the Tripitaka and soon attended arhathood. Among the Buddha's disciples, Nagasena is praised as foremost in non-attachment. Although many of the Buddha's disciples were strong renunciants, Nagasena was the most renowned for giving up his royal title and all his privileges. People today are very surprised when graduates from prestigious universities like Tsinghua University or Peking University in China join the monastic Sangha. But honestly speaking, this isn't shocking at all. Throughout Buddhist history, there have been many princes who joined the Sangha. Nagasena excelled as a practitioner under the guidance of the Buddha. He then went to the heaven of 4 great kings and gave Dharma teaching to the devas there. He did so to repay the kindness of the Buddha, because through the Buddha's teaching he attended arhathood. One would always be willing to repay the Buddha's kindness once one gains benefit from the Dharma. Actually, the real benefit is enlightenment, because that is the ultimate happiness. Once I asked someone whether he was the happiest person in this world, and he said absolutely not, because he hadn't yet attained enlightenment. I couldn't agree more. Enlightened beings are the happiest of all. There is a book called The Joy of Living, written by Gyangji Mingzhu Rinpoche, who is being known as the happiest man in this world. If this is the case, he must be a highly realized master. Otherwise, ordinary people lacking enlightened wisdom would be happy one day and become unhappy tomorrow. Wealth, social status, or family cannot bring ultimate happiness. They are changeable. Therefore, the most stable happiness is the joy of enlightenment. In order to repay the Buddha's kindness for guiding to enlightenment, one will generate bodhicitta and teach the Dharma, thus inspiring others onto the path of Dharma. As practitioners who haven't yet reached enlightenment, if you gain benefits from the Dharma and wish to repay your teacher's kindness, you can often offer them material goods or serve them with your body and speech. This will certainly please them. However, the best way is to practice the teaching according to their instructions and to strive to benefit sentient beings. Your effort in this direction will be the best way to express your gratitude. The 15th verse states, "We pay homage to the noble elder Gopaka, who dwells on Vihula, king of mountains, surrounded by 1,400 arhats, and holds a text in his 2 hands. Grant your blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread." The 15th elder is called Gopaka, or Bichapa in Tibetan. He is also called the Concealed One, since according to some sources, his name in Sanskrit means to be concealed or to be covered. The elder Gopaka dwells on Vihula, king of mountains, where 1,400 arhats surround him. He holds a Dharma text in both his hands. we pray to Gopaka with the aspiration that the long life of all great teachers may remain indestructible like Vajra mountain, and that the wish-fulfilling Dharma, the source of peace and happiness, will spread widely and unceasingly throughout the three worlds. This is the aspiration we should make. The life story of this elder was recorded in different sources. In the 100 Deeds, this story is entitled The Story of Diluted. The storyline is mostly consistent with what we find in Avadana Sataka, except that at the end, Gopaka is said to have been killed by a cow. Based on the prayer that we're studying, we know that Gopaka vowed in the presence of the Buddha to remain in this world in order to protect the Dharma. In this respect, the account in the 100 Deeds appears to be at odds with that commitment. In the Avadana Sataka, the story has a different ending, which I think better matches what is stated in the prayer. So I'll briefly talk about his life story based on its Chinese version. Gopaka had an unusual birth under difficult circumstances. He was born into a wealthy householder's family, but from the moment he was born, his body was covered in boils. This is like cases where people were born without limbs. As we may have seen on TV, as Gopaka grew up, the boils developed into a mass of sores covering his entire body, oozing blood and pus. It was unbearable to look at. Gopaka's parents sought out many different doctors and treatments in order to cure him, but all to no avail. In the 100 Deeds, it says that his parents could not bear to see his worsening condition, so they covered his body with fragrant water and clothes. That's why he was called the concealed one or the covered one. Probably his parents did so because they didn't want to expose his stinking body to others. Years later, as Gopaka grew up, he still couldn't find a cure. Some people who were aware of his condition suggested that he go to see Buddha Shakyamuni, since the Buddha was renowned as being the great healer of all diseases. From many accounts in the Vinaya texts, we know that the Buddha was not only the supreme healer of the mind, he was also an extraordinary physician capable of curing many rare illnesses that are incurable in the hands of ordinary doctors. Through his extraordinary blessings and skillful means, many diseases can be cured. Back to the story, Gopaka went to see the Buddha as suggested. The Buddha then spoke to him of the suffering that arises from the 5 aggregates. Upon hearing this teaching, Gopaka expressed deep remorse and confessed all his negative karma. Then all the sores on his body completely disappeared. Gopaka was overjoyed and requested the monk's vow from the Buddha. After taking ordination, he practiced the teachings diligently and swiftly attended Arhathood. Note that the times that he lived in was the Frushan period. As we know, Buddha's teaching is divided into 4 periods: the period of Frushan, accomplishment, transmission, and symbols. The time when the Buddha was present is called the Frushan period, since practitioners attended Frushan very quickly. Other disciples asked the Buddha why Gopaka was born with a body full of sores and how he attained arhathood so quickly. The Buddha then told a story. Long ago, two wealthy elders had a hostile relationship. One of them won the favor of the king by making offerings of great riches to him. This elder then accused the other of plotting against him. With the permission of the king, he viciously lashed the other elder and sprinkled poison over his wounds. Because of this false accusation and assault, the other elder developed a deep revulsion towards worldly life and samsara. He gave away all his wealth and went to live in a forest, meditating alone there. Since he practiced without the guidance of a teacher, he gained the accomplishment of a solitary realizer. He then observed that being wrongly accused and physically assaulted had actually been a positive circumstance for him, since it had helped him to attain his realization. We can see many similar stories in the 100 Deeds. Some Dharma practitioners may have similar experiences as well, having gone through certain challenges such as being treated unjustly, feeling abandoned, or experiencing trauma from different life events. They sought help from Buddhism and finally found the right path. As Venerable Longchenpa stated in the Precious Treasury of Peace Instructions, we should see those adverse circumstances and obstacles as incentive to our spiritual path. Anyone who caused us obstacles is our object of gratitude, because they became the positive inducement to our spiritual practice. Back to the story, in order to repay the huge kindness of the accuser, the solitary realizer displayed miraculous power to the older. The older then developed great faith and confessed all his wrongdoings. To avoid the negative karmic consequences, the elder engaged in all kinds of virtuous activities. However, his negative karma was not completely purified, and he still had to undergo many physical hardship in his subsequent lifetimes. In his last rebirth, he still suffered from severe illness due to this karma. This elder was reborn as Gopaka in this, his last life. By last rebirth, we mean the final rebirth in samsara. Being in this last rebirth transcends samsara and are no longer bound by sufferings, since they attain liberation within that lifetime. Even though Gopaka was in his last rebirth, he still could not escape the results of his previous negative karma. How did Gopaka attain arhathood so swiftly? In the 100 Deeds, it says that during the time of Buddha Kashyapa, he was a monk who observed his precepts very purely. Due to the ripening effect of this pure conduct, Gopaka was able to renounce his worldly life fairly quickly and attended arhathood within a short time. In summary, the Buddha instructed that after his passing, Gopaka should dwell on Mount Vihula to uphold the Dharma in this world. As follower of the Buddha, if we supplicate the older Gopaka, he will definitely fulfill his promise to maintain and protect the Dharma. The prosperity of the Dharma depends on the blessings of the Buddha's bodhisattvas, arhats, and devas, so it's very important for us to supplicate them. In particular, as his followers, we share a very special connection with Buddha Shakyamuni and his teaching. As stated in the White Lotus, an extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni, we will certainly receive blessings and accumulate merit by praying to other Buddhas. However, since Buddha Shakyamuni vowed specifically to care for beings in this world, we share an exclusive connection with him and will therefore receive swifter blessings when we pray to him. Among the retinue of Buddha Shakyamuni, the 8 great bodhisattvas are the Buddha's close sons. According to the great vehicle, if we pray to 8 great bodhisattvas, such as Avalokiteshvara, Maitreya, and Manjushri, through their blessings, Mahayana qualities such as bodhicitta and non-dual wisdom will easily arise in our minds if we wish to attain qualities emphasized in the lesser vehicle, such as renunciation and so on. We should invoke the noble arhats through their blessings. These qualities will more easily arise in our minds. This is similar to the way that we normally form bonds in our life. A guru and his students share a very special bond because of the relationship of direct transmission. In the same way, followers of Buddha Shakyamuni share a close karmic connection with him and his retinue. Thus, it's crucial for us to pray to the Buddha and his disciples, particularly the 16 elders and the 8 great bodhisattvas. This is why almost every Tibetan monastery, in addition to the central place given to Buddha Shakyamuni, will always find images of 8 great bodhisattvas and 16 arhats. There are there for a reason. There is nothing random about the image that we see inside a Buddhist temple. The 4 great kings are also often depicted at the entrance of a monastery. We'll cover them in a later verse. The 16th verse states, "We pay homage to the noble elder Abhidheya, who dwells among the king-like snowy peaks, surrounded by 1,000 arhats and holds an enlightenment stupa. Grant your blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread." The last elder that we pay homage to is Abhidheya, or Mocheba in Tibetan. It means the indestructible or unparalleled. The Abhidheya received this name because he was unparalleled in wisdom, discipline, compassion, and many other enlightened qualities. When I searched for the name Abhidheya in the Chinese sutras, I found only a few results. Later, I found mention of him in the Musala Vastivada Vinaya, but under another Sanskrit name, Pilintavata. This name appears more frequently in the Chinese sutras. The Chinese translation of Abhidheya is not so common. Abhidheya dwells among the king-like snowy peaks of Tibetan regions. I guess Tibetan masters can seek him out if they cannot find other elders. Abhidheya is surrounded by 1,000 arhats and holds an enlightenment stupa. Depictions of him are identical in both Han and Tibetan Buddhism. Some arhats are depicted differently in Han and Tibetan tradition in terms of their symbols. The other day, someone called me up and wouldn't hang up for a very long time. As the caller went on talking, I took the time to check all the images. If I remember correctly, the symbol Abidja holds is the same in both the Chinese and Tibetan illustrations. We pray for his blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. The elder Abidja is quite a distinguished figure. He was born into a Brahmin family in India and was an exceptionally refined child. As he grew older, he took great joy in performing acts of generosity. Eventually, he grew weary of worldly life and requested ordination when he met the Buddha. A striking attribute of Abidja is his strong compassion. In some sutras, it said that he is the foremost in compassion. And the Buddha praised him as one who practices compassion on seeing suffering. Generally speaking, as stated in the Dirghagama, bhikkhus are prohibited from talking about or displaying their supernatural powers and instead should conceal them. Nonetheless, when moved by compassion, Abidja did use his miraculous powers on certain occasions, but each time he was later excused by the Buddha. In the Musala Vastavada Vinaya, there is a story of how Abidja used his power to save his nephew. His nephew was originally a non-Buddhist. Later, through Abidja's persuasion, his nephew agreed to follow Buddhism. However, on his way to find Abidja, the nephew was abducted by bandits. And a diva passed this news to Abidja. After careful consideration, Abidja rescued his nephew by using his miraculous powers. Other bhikkhus learned about this incident and reported it to the Buddha. The Buddha then asked Abidja why he had used his miraculous powers. Was it because his relatives were involved or for other reasons? Abidja declined that it for any personal reasons or favor. He said, if I hadn't used my supernatural power to save my nephew, a family would fall apart. The non-Buddhists would take delight in this tragedy. After examining his motives, the omniscient Buddha excused him. Another example comes from five-part Vinaya, which recounts the story of how Abidja helped a destitute young girl. Once Abidja encountered a young girl who was extremely distressed because she couldn't afford any fine clothes to wear for a local event. She was very sad and kept crying. Out of compassion, Abidja used his supernatural power to turn pieces of grass into stunning pieces of jewelry made of finest gold that she could wear, so the girl went to the event. Someone out of jealousy reported this to the king about the jewelry. The king himself had never seen this fine jewelry, so he investigated the source. After inquiring Abidja, the king didn't believe that he had such supernatural power. To convince the king, Abidja took a stick and struck a pillar in his palace to show how he could transform ordinary objects into pure gold. As he struck the pillar, the entire building was transformed into a golden palace. Witnessing this, the king was convinced of his power. On another occasion, the Sangha had just finished their summer retreat in Rajgriha. The place where they were staying became filled with provisions offered by their followers. Hence, it became the target of bandits. One night, a group of bandits broke into their residence and bundled up all the goods. As they were attempting their getaway, a diva alerted Abhidya to what was going on. Abhidya used his miraculous power to surround the residence with an iron wall. When the bandits tried to leave with the goods, the wall blocked their way. When they dropped the goods, the wall completely disappeared. They made 7 attempts to leave, and at last gave up and ran away empty-handed. Other bhikkhus heard about this and reported to the Buddha. The Buddha then spoke to Abhidya and learned that he had done so with the sole intention of protecting the Sangha's property. Therefore, the Buddha didn't blame him. Abhidya seemed to be excused quite often like that. Abhidya dwells in the king-like snowy peaks in the Tibetan region. It could be somewhere around Mount Kailash, since it's well known that many arhats reside there. Many Nepalese troops guard the border in that area. I imagine they must receive lots of blessings.
下面是就下面是我们还有这位尊者的话呢，就是他有个特点呢，他的一个
There is another interesting aspect to the elder Abhidya. Abhidya had a strong karmic habit of arrogance resulting from his taking rebirth as a Brahmin for 500 lives. He often addressed others as Shudra, which is the name of the lowest caste in India. Although he was an arhat, he still continued this habit. Even when greeting the king, he would still call him Shudra. Out of the 4 castes, Shudra represents the lowest labors. Even as an arhat, he continued to offend others out of this habitual tendency. Even when apologizing, he would still say, "Sorry, Shudra." This is very unrespectful of others. The Buddha once reprimanded Abhidya, saying, "As an arhat, shouldn't all your disturbing emotion have been eradicated? Why do you still carry on this old habit of speech from your past 500 lifetimes?" Afterwards, Abhidya managed to rid himself of this habit once and for all. In a meeting yesterday, some of those present made nicknames for others and addressed them as big-nosed, shorty, etc. Since arhats could be under the influence of their habitual tendencies, it's hardly surprising that we ordinary people are prone to strong habitual tendencies too. I noticed that some monastics speak very loudly, which I assume is a tendency they have developed in this current life. Maybe it's because they have stayed in all sorts of environments, especially big cities, which are full of crowds and noises. When they come to a quiet place, it's difficult for them to speak softly all the time. All of us, monastics and lay people alike, should make every effort to change our habitual tendencies, though it's not easy. It may be impossible for us to get rid of all of them at once. In Abhidya's story, although he attended arhathood, his speech was still under the sway of his previous arrogance, and he still addressed others as low caste. Still, we need to be mindful of our behavior and speech. In particular, monastics should try to speak softly and avoid being too loud or disturbing. This might not be so much of a problem in big cities, where the volume of one's voice doesn't matter so much. But in a peaceful place like Larongar, this could easily disturb others. For instance, in an area where dozens of practitioners are conducting solitary retreat in their own wooden cabin, someone suddenly shouts out, "How much is the cabbage?" Or, "Are we getting any electricity today?" This can be extremely disturbing to the meditators. Hearing about the cabbage, someone might give rise to all kinds of thoughts in their mind, like, what, cabbage? They may have been visualizing the Buddha, but when they hear this remark, all they see is a cabbage in front of them. They then begin to wonder how much the cabbage costs, what to make for lunch, and so on and so forth. This kind of disturbance should definitely be avoided. We need to be very mindful of this. Concerning how loudly one speaks, I have stressed this many times in my lectures, but even arhats can find it difficult to change their habits. A few days ago, I saw two female students chatting together ahead of me. I was walking well behind them, at least 50 meters apart, but I could still hear everything they were talking about. It was all about meaningless topics. Not only were they not doing themselves any good, they were also potentially disturbing others. According to precepts, if we wish to speak to someone, we snap our finger to get his or her attention, especially when in practice session. If you call out loudly, "Hey, hey," then your voice will surely affect people around you. If a talkative person starts to gossip in the middle of a quiet place where others are trying to memorize texts, read sutras, meditate, or contemplate the teaching, this behavior will disrupt their cultivation of virtue. It's very likely that such a person would not be so fond of study or practice themselves. Even worse than this, some people seem to like pick conflicts. They don't care about other people around them because they get swept away by their strong emotion, even to the point of losing control. I hope you will all be considerate of others when you talk in public. We're responsible for ourselves, aren't we? Next is the 17th Noble Elder, who is a layman. We pay homage to the noble Upasaka Dharmatala, whose hair is in a top knot and who carries volumes of Dharma, who sees Amitabha in the sky before him and who holds a fly whisk and vase. Grant your blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. All these 16 sages we talked about are ordained arhats, whereas the 17th elder is an upasaka or layman. His name is Dharmatala. His hair is tied in a top knot, and he carries volumes of Dharma texts on his back. His clothes are similar to those worn by some Tibetan yogis, or the way that Padmasambhava is sometimes depicted in paintings wearing robes. I don't see him here. What about Tibetan collection? Anyway, there is a tanka of him in the Tibetan tanka collection of the 16 arhats. Did I tell you to bring it? I didn't? All right. So the noble Upasaka Dharmatala carries volumes of scripture on his back. He constantly looks into the space before him and visualizes Buddha Amitabha, his man deity. The fly whisk that he carries brings cool relief to sentient beings suffering from burning heat of affliction and anguish. The vase that he holds in the other hand provides water for the 16 elders to bath, wash their feet, and so forth. There is no mention of Dharmatala in the source concerning 16 elders in the Han Buddhism, but he is referred to in Tibetan Buddhism records. He is said to be the son of Emperor Xuanzong, who lived during the reign of Emperor Suzong in the Tang Dynasty. Emperor Suzong was very supportive of Buddhism. Emperor Suzong revered Master Maghavajra as his teacher and received empowerments from different masters. He also ordered the construction of 81 life liberation ponds across the country. It's said that Emperor Suzong sent a noble sage to India to invite the 16 arhats to the Han region for the summer retreat. This noble sage could be Dharmatala or another enlightened monk, according to different sources. As to which monastery they were invited, no records have been found. During this retreat, Dharmatala served them closely. Since the weather was very hot, he fended the arhats with his fly whisk to provide them with cool relief, and then the vase to carry water to wash their feet. In Tibetan paintings, Dharmatala is always drawn to be accompanied by a tiger. The tiger served as protector of the 16 arhats during their summer retreat. The 16 arhats were staying near a large forest and frequently went into the woods during their retreat. To ensure their safety, Dharmatala, who was a Mahasiddha, tamed a tiger and commanded it to protect the elders. The composer of this prayer, the great Pantita Shakashuri, intentionally added Dharmatala as the 17th elder. The ritual of this prayer was originally from Han region and later came to Tibetan region. It was a Chinese noble sage who invited the 16 arhats to the Han region. Therefore, many traditional Tibetan Tanka collections of 16 elders include 2 additional figures, Dharmatala and the Chinese monk. One source states that this Chinese monk is Master Bu Dai, who was very famous in Liang Dynasty. So Dharmatala must be Han Chinese. Some texts say Dharmatala was in fact a lay woman. I wasn't quite sure about this claim, so I asked Kempo the other day. Kempola confirmed that Dharmatala is indeed said to be an Upasika in some Buddhist records. The tiger that accompanied her protect her from being harmed by other people. Since she lived in a forest, she needed to be especially careful to safeguard her precepts. I have seen tankas of Dharmatala, but since the artists have skillfully depicted her in a gender-neutral way, I still can't tell whether it's a man or a woman. In Tibetan Buddhism, Master Bu Dai, Dharmatala, and the 16 elders make up the 18 elders. In Han Buddhism, Dharmatala is not included among the 18 elders, but Master Budai is included. Some sources say that Dharmatala invited the 16 arhats to the Han region. Either way, Dharmatala is certainly a sublime being. Otherwise, the 16 arhats would not come on a random invitation. Dharmatala must have supplicated them through skillful means. In the Tibetan texts, Dharmatala is referred to as the sublime Upasaka, but in the Chinese translation, his title has been abbreviated. Dharmatala is said to be an emanation of Avalokiteshvara, given that Avalokiteshvara regards Buddha Amitabha to be his principal deity. Dharmatala also visualizes Amitabha and prays constantly to him. Therefore, if we recite this prayer continuously, it will create the favorable condition for us to take rebirth in Sukhavati. According to some historical records, when Buddha-dharma is declining, the 16 arhats and their retinue will build a huge stupa and place secret objects of the three jewels and dharma texts in it. They will also praise it and also say a lot of prayers and do a lot of offerings. Then their physical forms will disappear. They will enter into the final stage of nirvana. The stupa will remain underneath the earth in this world. Here is the last stanza. We pay homage to the four great kings who are mighty and wear the armor of diligence and who guard well the teachings of Buddha in the four directions, east, south, west, and north. Grant your blessing so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. Next, we pay homage to the four great kings. Specifically, Dhritarashtra guards the east, Viruthaka the south, Virupaksha the west, and Vaishravana the north. Wearing the armor of diligence, the four great kings guard each of the four directions and safeguard the Buddha's teachings through their miraculous powers. Whether in a Tibetan or Han monastery, we can see the four great kings at the entrance in Han region, starting from Song Dynasty. Monastics began to build a worship hall for Maitreya. Before that, in the time of 5th dynasty, the image of Maitreya in the form of Master Budai started appearing in some monasteries. Then Maitreya was moved to the center of the four great king hall, which is the first shrine hall in a monastery. Nowadays, Dharma teacher might offer different explanations regarding the four great kings. For instance, since Vaishravana means son of he who has heard many things, this king serves as an indication that we need to increase our knowledge and learn to deal with worldly things. Virupaksha in the West represents change, so we should be mindful of all kinds of changes in this world. When His Holiness was teaching the 100 deeds, he shared the story of the four great kings. In the time of Buddha Kashyapa, 2 Naga kings and 2 Garudas lived on the slopes of Mount Meru. The Naga kings and Garudas were enemies of each other, but later they took refuge in the three jewels. After that, they became good friends. Together they acted in accordance with the teachings of Buddha Kashyapa. Upon their death, they prayed to be renowned as lords and to uphold the teaching of Buddha Shakyamuni. So, by the power of their aspiration, They were reborn as the four great kings and protect all those who uphold the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni. Any Tibetan monastery would have images of the four great kings either painted on the outside or inside of the gate. We should do so in our shrines as well. The four great kings can not only protect the Dharma, but also grant protections to us Dharma holders and practitioners.
四大天王的这个发现也好，四大天王的话呢，就是对这个修行者呢，就是包括就是有非常大的价值。四大天王就是专门有这个四大天王记呢，就是四大天
In
王记
the Sutra of the Four Great Kings,
这个四大天王
it's said that the god Indra commanded the four great kings to watch over humanity and to observe their behavior. This happens 6 times every month. On the 8th, 14th, 15th, 23rd, 29th, and 30th day, respectively. These days are known as days of observance.
就精心就是保护你，精心呢就是加持你，就是这是特别的来。就像我们莲花生大师的话呢，
It's similar to the pledge that Padmasambhava made to his human disciples before departing for Raksha land. He said that he would visit the human world on the 10th day of every Tibetan month. Generally, if we fail to remember and invoke a particular Buddha or deity, they will not appear in front of us. On the other hand, if we do recollect them, they will manifest before us. This is said by the Buddha. However, there are certain celestial kings and sublime beings who made a special commitment. Even if we don't recollect them, they will still bestow their blessings upon us. I hope that all Buddhists will recognize the importance of these special days. For example, on the 8th, 10th, 15th, and 30th of every month, we should make special offerings to the three jewels. When I was little, I had a neighbor who was an old monk. He made a great impression on me because of all the routines and customs that he followed. Now, since I'm so busy every day with many different duties, I'm not able to make daily offerings to the three jewels as I used to, but I have maintained the good habit of making offerings on these special days. For instance, if today is the 8th, I would uncover my precious tankas, display them properly, and make offerings in front of them, even if only a lamp, since it's very important to make offerings to the Buddha on these special days. Many Buddhists engage in particular activities on this special occasion, for example, performing recitation of precepts on the 30th and making a soul offering on the 25th. The Kshitigarbha Sutra, the Sutra on the Mahayana principle of the 6 paramitas, and sutras of the 4 great kings, each offers different versions of observance days, but generally speaking, 8th, 10th, 15th, and 30th of every month are regarded as exceptionally significant. Nowadays, many young Tibetans seem to forget about these traditions. Many Buddhist households in the Han region seem to be more aware of this tradition. On auspicious days, most Tibetan young people do not seem to know these traditions. They would watch TV, browse internet, chit-chat, go for coffee, or do other mundane things. Just like usual, they don't think about performing virtual steeds. For example, on these special days, they don't think, I should make offerings to the Buddha and recite some mantras. I should uphold the 8 precepts today I should do some prostrations in front of the three jewels, since virtuals and non-virtuals multiply exceptionally on these special days. I should refrain from sexual misconduct, false speech, and other negativity. Or although I'm not monastics, I should at least do some practice and accumulate some positive actions on these special days as Buddhists.
就是老人啊，就是他们有些老年人的话呢，就是他在他的身上呢，就是
This is why I admire the old generation of Tibetans so much. Tibetan elders hold much precious knowledge and have observed these traditions throughout their lives. Sadly, as they pass away, the knowledge and traditions that they hold may not get passed down to future generations. These days, more than ever, we have access to all sorts of information. We become good at using the internet and discuss a drama or TV show. This kind of knowledge will hardly bring us any benefits, but rather it contaminates our mind. It offers no substantial value for our present or future lives. However, this world is more and more corrupted by materialism and overconsumption. As a result, spiritual values and teachings that truly benefit people become undervalued. Many people disregard them, feeling that they are just superstition or nonsense or old-fashioned thinking. They think that a progressive society doesn't need this kind of outdated practice. However, how can we really say that this is a progressive society without any spiritual support or spiritual teachings? Back to the four great kings. I'm not talking about the four pop kings of Hong Kong here like Andy Lau, but the four celestial kings in Buddhism. Based on your reaction, it seems that you still have a vivid memory of those pop stars.
所以我们想呢，就一定要就是通过这个祈祷他们呢，就是护持这个佛法。
Anyhow, we need to pray to the four great kings for their blessings to protect the Dharma. A monastery should erect their statues or have their paintings at the entrance. In Han monasteries, the statues of the four great kings are commonly seen. In the Tibetan regions, almost every monastery has paintings of the four great kings at the entrance. When we visit a Han or a Tibetan monastery, we can often see these images upon entering. When you see them, you should make an aspiration to propagate the Dharma and to protect the lives of the great masters, just as they have done. For example, you can say to yourself, may I emulate the four great kings and always safeguard and help spread the Dharma. Moreover, inside our private shrine rooms, it's important to place images of the four great kings. In addition to protecting the Dharma, they also grant great blessings and protect all those who uphold and practice the Dharma. Never think that you don't need to venerate them, since the nature of everything is emptiness. Before we reach the level of realization, we need to engage in positive actions as much as possible. In the meantime, since we are habitually inclined to non-virtual, we should summon all our mindfulness and vigilance to guard against negativity. For beginners and ordinary practitioners, what is the optimal approach to Dharma practice? Of course, it's impossible for us not to make a single mistake each day, just as it's impossible for us not to have any negative thoughts. However, when a negative thought does arise, we should first recognize it and then reject it. If that doesn't work, we should sincerely confess it. That's the approach that every Dharma practitioner should adopt. We should not become discouraged by any slight difficulties we may encounter and then give up our Dharma practice in our daily life. There are always ups and downs, joy and sadness. Losing faith in life and falling into a depression just because we experience one upsetting event would not make any sense. In conclusion, through learning the prayer to these 16 elders, I hope we will all pray to these noble beings for the longevity of the Dharma teachers and prosperity of the Dharma. Currently, we're practicing magnetizing activity. This prayer will create an auspicious dependent origination for our Dharma activity. That's all for today.
顶礼金色庄严佛，光无眼足无伦比，一面二臂加辅佐，左牙地等持引，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣尊因解脱，居于第四大雪山，1300罗汉绕七佛尘，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣尊20多，七十尊神，灵一罗汉绕围绕，双等持引，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼色帕摩斯多，这些佛传统，1400罗汉绕，解七佛。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼佛祖舍利迦，持同咒1100罗汉绕，抽是春之音之耳环，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼色色罗佛陀，吉利陀不罗佛种，1000大罗，切切可心持戒。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣者波罗罗，具一佛传佛咒，1200佛团绕，做佛法心定之意。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼迦罗迦所陀，至于迦神弥勒国，佛法绕顶听说。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼色帕陀陀，具于心流罗咒中，1200罗汉绕，双足羯子等持引，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣佛巴古拉，具于北俱卢咒中，900大罗汉绕，手足土头树。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣者罗睺罗，普陀吉难咒，1200罗汉绕，降至天照至天观，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼诸盘盘陀迦，居于09之中，1600罗汉绕，双手结佛等持引。加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼宾多罗盘多，众生身手中1000罗汉所围绕，金汉俱波语，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣者般陀迦，居于33天中，900大罗汉绕，作法。持金汉上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣者那吉西，具一比作头三者，1200罗汉绕，上师吉天者，加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生，顶礼圣者苏盘陀，居于三王毗呼啦，1400罗汉绕，双手。金汉加持上师九祖师，加持佛法变行生， 顶礼圣者阿比特，生死心当中，一切万难遮海绕，人就诸菩提塔。加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形神，顶礼圣者大摩大，常住诸佛多真哈。世间虚空无量光，手持福存一宝瓶。加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形神，顶礼十大天王尊，具于十方南非方。毕竟金家具威力，三藐护持佛陀法。加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形神。
你中没有吗？
顶礼金色庄严佛，观波眼珠无人，一面二臂加辅佐，左牙地音等持，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形。顶礼圣尊因解脱，居于第四大雪山，1300罗汉绕，手持香炉及佛尘，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣尊阿释多，具现人三性，100罗汉所围绕，上手结作等持印，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣法那婆斯，居于七叶护山洞，1400罗汉绕，皆其可因持佛尘，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣尊迦利迦，居于占卜持通中，1100罗汉绕，手持纯净自耳环，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼法舍罗佛多，居于深切罗洲中，1000大阿罗汉绕，皆其可因持佛尘，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。真尊巴陀罗，居于仰慕怒河中，1200罗汉绕，左说法音等持音，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼迦罗迦婆陀，居于迦尸令离国，500大阿罗汉绕，手持珍宝智卷说，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣巴利多者，居于西女火洲中，700大阿罗汉绕，上手结等持印，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣尊巴古拉，居于北俱泸州中，900大阿罗汉绕，上手护我土宝手，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼圣尊罗诃罗，居唐古特清南州，1100罗汉绕，手持珍宝智天冠，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼诸陀班陀迦，居于灵鹫山州中，1600罗汉绕，上所结作等持印，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼宾多罗波罗，居于东胜神州中 一切罗汉所围绕，手持金函及钵盂，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼三尊半陀迦，居于三世三天中，900大阿罗汉绕，左手法印持金函，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼三尊那迦悉，居于须弥庐山城。1200罗汉绕，手持宝瓶及锡杖，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼三尊殊宾陀，居于三王毗呼啦。1400罗汉绕，上手所作金传，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼三尊阿弥陀，居于邪于三王中。一切罗汉所围绕，上手菩提塔，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼居士大马达，长发梳头过金函，视天虚空无量光，手持佛尘月宝瓶，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。顶礼四大天王尊，居于东西南北方，披荆棘教具为礼，三门护持佛陀法，加持上师救助师，加持佛法变形身。
第一名是男宗。
The first place is male and female sangha.
Sonam dai tamche zebanye tonane bedana bashi kirgana jeralon cheba chebam sonen da